first podcast show. We got Big Steve Knapp from the USA on this morning. Steve, good morning. Good afternoon.
Yeah, it's afternoon for me, but we can say morning because that's where you are. So thanks for having me on the show.
Mate, pleasure to have you on. And obviously we've known each other maybe for a year now.
I think so. Yeah, I think it was September, about a month away, 11 months to be exact. But it feels like a lifetime, brother. So.
Indeed, it does. And we met in one of the strangest places to meet someone in South Dakota.
Yeah, and I'm an American, and that was my first time to go to South Dakota. So
yeah, and that was my first trip to the States. That was the first place that I've ever been to in America, and of all places to go to, South Dakota.
Yeah.
But, awesome experience. Awesome experience, and awesome to meet an awesome person. And so we've discussed, this is our first ever show, and one thing that we wanted to do was really, discuss current topics or, business leaders, life leaders, and just see exactly, how you work through and what gets you up every day and how you keep motivated, how to keep positive, and especially current times with, everything that's happening with the, global pandemic. There's a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression throughout the world at the moment. How, if you've ever experienced that, I know personally I have, and just how you deal with that, how you work through with that, the advice that you can give to people, because it's a massive topic for people, especially now in Melbourne. We're in stage 4 lockdown, which is effective as of tonight, midnight tonight, where we've got an 8 o'clock curfew. We can't go out. And 6 weeks at home, can't go anywhere, can't go to the office. Most work is shut down.
Wow. Yeah, it's tough when things happen in our life, and this is massive, right? Worldwide pandemic, and so we're in this space of uncertainty. And one thing that always reminds me, though, and one of my friends said it, he said, well, when has it been certain? When would you actually know what tomorrow brings? But the more uncertainty brings about this worrying, right? Like of where we're going to go. And has that happened in my life many, many times? And it didn't have to be a global thing. It could be just my local thing. Like something could just be happening in my house that causes, major issues in my life. And there's so many things I could bring up, but I think the thing that comes most and maybe it's the right place to start, maybe it's not, I don't know. But what I can tell you, after over a decade of personal growth, I thought that all of it was for me to be better. Like when I was depressed or had anxiety, then it was, okay, Steve, you just have to be better. You have to go fix yourself. And what I found is there's no fixing. You're not broken. In fact, all of that trying to be a better person was me trying to be something that I was not, trying to be what I thought other people wanted me to be. And so now the way that I define personal growth is allowing myself to be me. And actually all of my work has been to let go of all the layers, all the things that were put on me by family, by community, by what I was supposed to be. And when I let all that go and I followed my true nature, then peace came. And the reason I was hesitant to start here is because it's like, oh, great, Steve. Yeah, great. How do you do that? Right. It's like, what? What are you talking about? But it is the truth. It's hard to find me on a bad day now because I'm so true to myself, but it wasn't always that way. And there's so many things I could say, Dan, but there's like so many little things, but ultimately I just wanted to say that straight away, is that you just have to be true to yourself first and foremost.
And I think that's the challenging part too, isn't it? When you're going through that sort of a challenge, when you're in depression or you've got anxiety, you can feel like you're in such a low place. And then how the hell do you identify what is the first step that you take? Because it's hard, and I've been through it in my early 20s with, I wouldn't say it was full-blown depression, but it was definitely anxiety to the point where I was, having to lay down and meditate and breathe into a paper bag, and then all these things to try and push through it, and not really feeling like I was existing in it every day, and to try and, there's sometimes that one thing that just does snap you out of it. But, what is that one thing for each individual person? And sometimes it feels like there's so much pressure, external pressure, from trying to appease everyone else and trying to, you know, everyone gives you all their emotional baggage of how you should be and who you should be and what you should be doing, or this confusion about thinking, well, what the fuck do I actually want to do? Who do I want to be? And understanding
Right.
that too.
You know, it's funny. I understand what you're saying. And the thing that keeps coming to mind, and this is most recent, like, you know, I'm continuing to improve my life and the thing, and, you know, the way that I live. And the thing that keeps coming up is the Goldilocks story, right? Like, she's the one, I think that's the story, right? She's the one that she goes in and goes and finds the 3 bowls of porridge, and like one's too hot. Oh, that's too hot. And then
Yeah, yeah,
one's
yeah.
too cold. And then one's just right. And the reason that started to resonate with me is it's like, if you just notice, oh, that's too hot or that's too cold, you can find that just right. And the word importance keeps coming to me, because all the times that I gave myself anxiety, like
Yeah.
there was one time I was I think I was just about to turn 31. So just coming out of my 20s, and it was not a good time. It was one of probably my darkest times in my life. I've had several, but this was one. It was really bad. You know, my company on the outside looked like it was doing great. I was holding it all inside. No one knew that I was like so close to losing everything. Even my wife at the time didn't fully understand how close we were to losing everything, but it was stressful. She was definitely aware. You know, we're at the point where the company's working on $500,000, $1 million campaigns. We had a marketing firm, and then I was wondering how I was going to pay the mortgage, and I kept like hiring more people so I didn't have to work as much. But the bigger the clients got, the more that I was working, and I got myself in this spiral. And I remember coming home really late one night, and I sat on the couch and my heart was pounding so much. It felt like it was coming out of my chest. And I told my wife, better take me to the hospital. I'm having like a heart attack. And then she was able to calm me down, and I didn't go to the hospital, and it was a panic attack. And it was all the importance. It was everything that I was putting on myself, again, coming to self. And so it's not an easy thing here, what I'm saying, but what I've had to train myself to do is realize 2 things. One, I gave too much importance to any one thing, which then caused me grief, right? Because it was like, I have to do that. And this I'm going to put into a metaphor, because this is how I learned it. What I was doing was I was setting a goal for myself, or, you know, I was setting where I thought I would be successful, right? Because we're all labeling ourselves and who we are, what we want to be, or what we want to achieve. And in our society today, what we achieve becomes our worth. So then we feel like crap because we're not achieving what we want. So now we're a loser in our own mind. This might not even be told to us by anyone else, but we cause that. And so what I was doing is I set a goal, and then I was on a road, you know, let's say, and the car is going along, and it's not going well. Like the road is not paved anymore. All of a sudden the road disappeared. There's all these bumps, and my car's falling apart. Like the left rear tire is about to fall off.
Yeah.
You know, and then finally, luckily, I bumped into some people that actually shared some stuff with me. You know, just imagine, I'm making this metaphor up, but this is what it was like in my life. And someone says, Steve, what are you doing on this road? I'm like, well, this is where my goal is. I'm going to go down here. Well, did you know no one's used this road in 22 years? And I'm like, what? They're like, yeah, we built a bypass. There's a new freeway, a roadway.
A better road to go down.
Yeah. And so what I had to learn, Dan, was that you don't give up on your dreams, but do give up on the road that you're on if it's hurting you. And so now every time there's that's that saying that actually, it basically almost killed me, was the no pain, no gain. We grow up, and there are people right now, there could be a podcast happening right now, is all I know, but I definitely know there's people that still speak on this subject, and they're like, no pain, no gain. If you don't have pain, you're not going to gain. And you know what? That's just not true. Can you gain from pain? Absolutely. Do we learn when we go through stuff? Absolutely. I'm not denying that. But we also gain when there's no pain. And now the way that I've changed my life, and this is what's helped me get out of depression and anxiety, is when it hurts, that's when I slow down and I'm like, whoa, am I on the right road? And I have a mantra now. There's always another way. There's always another way. And then I get on that road, and then I'm off, and it feels so good.
Oh yeah. It's amazing. Right. And but look, it's probably easier, not easier. I'm not going to say easier. That's probably not the right word, but it's probably, you know, maybe a little bit different for guys like us, because we've done a hell of a lot of work on it, and we've got each other. I've got, you know, Mark, my brother, that I can always lean to, but for people that don't have anyone, or that don't, that aren't surrounded. Because I always say to people, you've got to surround yourself with the most amazing people that are going to lift you up, people that are going to give you that great energy. And if you don't have those people, is it about selecting one thing? Just pick one thing. Like what I've noticed with people who are in depression or have got major anxiety is, one thing that always stood out for me is that there's a type of music that they listen to, and they're not moving their body a lot. They're kind of, you see them and they're slumped over, and they're angry, or they're just, they're slow about everything. And is it just, pick one thing and put on some loud music and just, just fuck it, just dance for 30 seconds and just get that energy moving and get that energy shifting. And that's that's one small thing, and just do that. And if you really want to move through this, do that a couple of times a day. But how do you get someone to respond to that too? Because when they're in that state, they definitely don't want to do those things.
Well, yeah, that's the hardest part. Because it is just moving your body, watching a movie that would make you laugh. I mean, when I was in depression, I listened to horrible music. Like now, when I look back at the music I listened to, I put something on. I'm like, oh, remember when I used to listen? And I'm like, what?
Yeah, no wonder I was depressed.
No wonder. Like this, me that was depressed. So the music, I think it's a mixture. We call in, but even like gardening or going out and touching the earth, putting your feet on the ground. There's lots of little things. One thing that I think caused me the most grief was putting so much pressure on me. I mean, for me, this is my story. Like everyone's story is different, but for me, being an entrepreneur and taking care of business was a big deal. And then like when I wasn't doing that, feeling like a loser. And I remember what made a significant impact on me was I lost a friend. And I lost that friend. They were a good friend of mine. They were older than me. I had a lot of older friends because I was always aspiring to learn from them. But we were really, really good friends. And I did not tell the truth. And it wasn't like I was lying to him, but I withheld the information of all the pain that I was going through. And then finally, when I couldn't hide it anymore because it was so great and I was so stressed and I was so depressed about where I was in my business and in my life directly, because my business was a big part of my life. Then he was like, whoa, now I see where our friendship is. Like the fact that you couldn't tell me that. And then we drifted and we never had the same relationship ever again. And that happened to me when I was in my 20s. Yeah. And I'm so thankful for that moment, because I think what happens, like what you just said, like, here we are like driving to thrive. Right. But it wasn't always that way. And I think the biggest thing anyone can do, and what do you really have to lose? I mean, just think about that, is that vulnerability. Like it's a big deal for me, and how many times we're living. So I think a lot of anxiety and depression comes from us trying to be something that we're not. It really does. And like you said, it's not easy to just snap out of that. But if you can actually find it in yourself to say, so what? And that goes back to the importance, let the importance fade away, and then just share how you're feeling. Then you can start.
That's a big thing too, isn't it? Like not feeling the pressure of having to have the answers all the time. And I think that's a big part of it. When I was going through that, that anxiety, I was constantly looking for answers and thinking, why am I feeling like this? And I need to just move away from this space. And that, you're trying to solve all these problems and understand all these things. And sometimes you just need to let it be and then sit with it. And, and a good one to touch on will be, and you'll have a lot to say about this, will be starting meditation and meditating through this and just sitting in that space and sitting with yourself and letting everything go. And, you're the guru, you're my guru on this topic. And, Mark and I have we've just finished a big meditation session with you, and we came out of it and we both said, we got on our call and said, man, we felt really flat after that. And you said, you guys are doing like heavy mental lifting every single day. And I've started another meditation, which is a 9-week one, the Dr. Joe course, Dr. Joe Dispenza. And this one is plucking out all those old things. And part of it is kind of what you were just touching on. And it's admitting to yourself all these secrets that you've been hiding from yourself that are in there, but dragging them out and saying, well, this is exposing your fears and saying, these are my fears. This is what I'm afraid of, dredging them out and saying, but I'm happy to let go of these now. But I think there's a massive part, until you actually verbalize them, until you write them down in your journal, then you've constantly just got them locked away somewhere. And I think that's a massive important one that you've taught us as well, to expose those things,
Absolutely. And you sometimes you don't even know. They're so subconscious. So you start with the ones that you see right in front of you.
Mm,
And I'm such a fast-paced guy. Like
mm,
I keep turtle like artwork of turtles around me because I want to slow down. But when I met my wife, she's like, "You never stop to smell the roses." It was always like work, work, work. And now I teach all about freedom and having the life that you want, and it's totally different for me. But when when people told me to meditate, I'm like, yeah, right. Like there's no way. I'm not sitting and thinking of nothing. I thought meditation was like sitting there and thinking of nothing, which was in my mind impossible.
mm,
And to this day, I'm definitely slower and I can have moments just of peace. And it is very peaceful practice. But what I found was by not slowing down and by having that fast-paced life and trying to be better and putting all that pressure on myself, which caused a lot of the problems,
mm.
I never slowed down enough to hear myself.
Yeah,
We are so powerful beings. Like we know so much, and really it comes from our heart. It's like really listening. Like Steve Jobs said it in one of his famous speeches. It's the one where he said, "You can't connect the dots looking forward in your life, only looking back." And then part of that speech, he always also said, somehow you already know what you're meant to do.
mm,
And it's that inward reflection until I slow down. And I started with just 5 minutes a day. So
yeah,
I just made a pact with myself. Just for those that have never done this before, the simple thing that I did is I sat on the edge of my bed and I gave myself 5 minutes. And
yeah,
I would, at some point I would put on like a little song or something. Like you can download like little meditation songs or whatever. And even if it was longer, I would fast forward till there was only 5 minutes left. So when the song ended, I knew it was over. Right. That's
yeah,
how
yeah,
I
yeah,
was
yeah,
like, okay, and then I'm going to get off to work. Right. It was like, oh, I
yeah,
just got to go. So I'm doing that. And then I set this little process. I said, okay, for about approximately the first minute, I'm just going to focus on what I'm grateful for.
mm,
That's been a big part. Like before all this, that anxiety I was talking about, like when I was at 30, 31, I was not grateful. I
mm,
was so upset with myself. I was so like, I should be farther in my life. I'm a loser. I didn't have self-worth. I came out, growing up wasn't so easy for me in the way that my dad worked all the time. So I really had an absent father. He was there financially, but not physically there. And then my mom had 4 kids and she wasn't okay with being like a single mom with my dad gone all the time. So then my mom was mentally out of it. So I basically had a mom that wasn't mentally there and a father that wasn't physically there. And I grew up thinking life sucks and it's the
yeah.
way it is. Good luck. And so all
Get
through
through
my
it.
20s, this is what I was living with in the background. And it
Mm,
wasn't until I slowed down that I found my power. Because before that, before I had any gratitude for what I had done for myself, I thought I was just a loser. And then that
mm,
doesn't help. Like you have, so everything you do, even if you put the outward appearance, and even then I was an entrepreneur, I'm running a business. Everyone's like, wow, Steve's successful. Inside it was like, dude, you're a loser.
mm.
You
You
should be
can't do
further
this. You're not
along.
going to make it work.
Your company's not good enough. Like you are not good enough. It's all going to fall because everyone's going to find out that you're a loser.
Yeah, and you're constantly having that battle, that internal battle of just waiting for it all to fall over. You're just waiting
Yeah.
for that moment where, oh well, this hasn't worked, and it's almost as if you're setting that you're anticipating that to happen. So when it does happen, you're like, well, yeah, I knew that was going to happen
There was.
because
That's
you
how
create,
much
you're creating it, yeah,
manifestation. So
yeah,
there it is. Manifestation can go on both ways. And that's why I used to ask myself that, like, oh, what's going to happen if I lose everything, or I am going to lose everything. It's going to happen. And then now when people say, how much worse can it, I'm like, don't stop. Don't even finish that sentence.
yeah,
That question. I don't want to know.
yeah.
Let's ask this. How much better can it be? How can tomorrow be greater than today? That's a great question.
100%. And this is a thing that I was thinking about. I watched a really good documentary on Netflix. I don't know if it's in the States yet or not, but it's called Heal. And the takeaway that I got from that, and basically it's about people with a lot of people with cancer or debilitating disease, and the connection with healthy eating, and they're looking at all the some of the people that are eating super well and looking after their body and nourishing it, but also there's a connection with their mind that they are missing. So they don't have a healthy mental mind. And that connection that they bring into it, saying, well, if you can eat all the good foods that you want, but if you don't have a healthy mindset, i.e. depression or, holding on to all these things from the past, you are manifesting disease in your body. And, it got me thinking about gratitude and being grateful. And after I watched that show, I was like, man, I'm grateful for the small things, which are not small things. They're massive things. Like, I've got every single limb on my body. I've got a healthy, functioning body with no disease. I've got a roof over my head. And if you can just look at those small things and just start to appreciate those small things, that, like I said, they're not small, they're massive.
Huge. And you know what else? The mind doesn't know the difference between big things and small things. So when you brush your teeth and you say success, then and then you put your clothes on, you're like, success, I got dressed today. Oh, I left, I did this, success, right? Then the mind starts seeing you as successful.
Yeah, and just see that little piece of magic in every part of life that we do, because there is. I saw a really good quote the other day that said, if you're having a shitty day, or if you're having a bad day, just think about what happens every day. There's something beautiful that happens at the end of every day, and it's a sunset. So you can have the worst, darkest, gloomiest day, but there's always a beautiful sunset that you can just go out and admire. And it's just capturing and finding that one thing to focus on. And I say to people all the time, and they say, I'm having a shit day, I'm having a shit week. And I said, well, how are you having a shit day and shit? Like, that's a lot of shit to have. No one has that much shit. It's a moment. Yeah. Yes. And everyone has shit moments, but don't let it be a day. Don't let it be a week. Just let it be a moment. And if you need to, go and meditate through it, go and write it down in a journal, because everyone does things differently. And one of the amazing things that I also found when we started getting into the meditation, because as you're going through life, you're always looking for mentors and leaders. And all of the people that are really, at the top of the game and achieving all these things, or that are living this amazing life, I notice a pattern, and it's they all meditate. And you never think that deep into it, or think, oh yeah, these guys would be, sitting down and meditating. Who does that? That's just for hippies, or for, guys that want to walk around with no shoes on. But, the people that are really in touch and really understand and can see that magic in life, they take that time to give to themselves and go inwards and just take a break and meditate through it. And I think it's a beautiful thing that we should all explore.
It's huge. And, I think people overlook it because they think of a Buddhist monk sitting on top at a temple or something, and then we don't want to do it. But really, it's just slowing down enough to listen to your inner voice in a way, just in simple terms. So if you're not going to sit down with yourself, because in today's busy, bustling world, for most places and most countries, we're running to the next thing. And if you have a family, it gets even more in depth. You got to go here and you got to do this and you got to do that. Then we don't give ourselves that space. So, even if you just go for a walk, or this is why some people like to become runners, because they call it runner's high, but really the runner's high is really just a meditation, because you're in emotion and then you lose yourself. There's an Australian, is a guy I met from Perth. He said, if you're not going to meditate, take longer showers. Because, because then, like, when a lot of people say, oh, where did you think of that? Oh, I've thought of it in the shower, because you're doing something that you don't have to think about anymore, right? Like, you're going through the motions, you're washing off, and then the mind just starts to go. And when you're going day to day and you're not stopping to smell the roses, you're not stopping to see the beautiful things in your life, then so it's just taking enough pause, even if it's 5 minutes, like I was saying, at the edge of your bed, and just notice what you would like, and start to imagine having that. So for me, meditation became a big part of visualization, right? Yeah. Noticing what I'm grateful for and noticing what I would like to have, and then allowing that to start to manifest, because I'm just continually picturing having that. And when things didn't go my way, one of my teachers, Carl Buchheit, he always says, there's no failure, there's only feedback. And that was huge for me, because I did feel like a failure. But if you look at it, there is no failure. Failure is only if you give up. There's no failure. There's only feedback. And sometimes we get good feedback, and sometimes we get bad feedback. So what his instructions were, they're quite simple. Choose what you want,
Yeah.
take what you get, and
Yeah.
quite literally take what you get, because we don't always get exactly what we want, especially when we first start out this manifestation game. You know,
Mm,
we don't always get what we want, but you got to take what you get,
mm,
and then you ask again. Then you
yeah.
ask, you choose what you want again. And what I added these words to it is the gratitude, which he brought to all the work. But it was very easy for me to say, okay, choose what I want, take what I get, be grateful for it, no matter if I liked it or not.
Mm,
Because when that information comes, because there's no failure, there's only feedback. So
yeah.
think every step of your day, every step of your life is just feedback. And then that feedback allows us to make a new decision. So then now it's like, oh, that sucked. That was really shitty. Okay, so now I'm going to not do that again. I'm going to make a new choice to do something different. Or, oh my gosh, that was amazing. I love
Yeah.
it. Okay, do it again. Do it. And
Yeah.
that's the next choice. Do it
But
again.
it
Do it
gives you that
again.
experience too, doesn't it? Like that is what you build and you gain from it. And you know, Mark and I have said that constantly. That you know, we Mark left school when he was 15. I just barely finished high school. We were not university educated. And I say to to my kids all the time that if you haven't done that, big deal. You learn by making mistakes, and you've just got to be okay with the fact that you're going to make mistakes, but that's your university degree. And particularly for Mark and I, that's been our university degree. Is like we've done everything under the sun. You name it, we've tried to do it, and we've done it hard. And then we came at the end of it like, oh my god, that was exhausting. But it's that's where all the learning is. And for us, it's been about when we stop and we think, okay, if we get into a spot, just give me one thing to focus on, and whether that comes out like you were just saying with a great outcome, or where you're super excited like, oh yeah, just or you're like, that didn't really go the way that it did. But there's always, every single time, if it doesn't go that way, there's always another angle. Like, bang, there it is.
So you just keep making decisions. So the quicker
Yeah.
you can find gratitude, and that's why my company, we say choose gratitude, create freedom. If you want your
Yeah.
freedom, choose gratitude, because every time something comes, and that's where it helps when it is really not good, then I've
Mm,
got to say, okay, what can I be grateful in this? And one of my
mm,
other friends, Tommy Boris, and I, when we used to hang out a lot, we used to have a thing called the 5-minute wallow. So
yeah.
anything really bad happened or whatever it was, we would give ourselves 5 minutes, literally set a timer, and then
Mm,
write down everything that happened that we didn't like. And we have 5 minutes to vent.
yeah.
Or if you're saying it out loud, blah, 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 blah. And then at 5 minutes, then you had to
Mm,
say, okay, now what would I like? Now
yeah.
what would I like? And we have to move on, because if we dwell in the past, then that becomes regret, and it
Yeah.
doesn't
You're stuck
allow us to do
there.
it. And then if you worry about the future, which a lot of people are right now, coming to what's going on, like there's so much uncertainty, right? But
Mm,
again, what I said at the beginning of this podcast is like, when are we certain? When are you really certain that tomorrow is going to be the way that you think it is? Never.
never,
Like we're
never,
never,
it never
never ever
happens.
certain. So all we have is the present moment. And isn't that interesting that it's called present, which
Mm,
is also a term for a gift?
yeah.
And if we can actually focus on this moment, which also comes from meditation, focusing on us right now, where we are in this moment, not worrying about what's happened, we can learn from the past, but come to present. And then we can think about the future, but not too much, because we
Mm,
want to be right here, right now. And the point of most power is right now,
yeah.
right now.
Once for me, one thing that I've always done, and I think is has been detrimental to digging the hole deeper, is okay, then I'll find that one thing, and then I'll just start over analyzing that one thing and thinking about the process that's involved, and I'll start visualizing what this one goal is, and then I'll start thinking about what's the path to get there. And like you were saying before, forget about the path, just visualize on that one thing. And when I stopped doing that, I noticed that all these things, just you open up and all these things start coming to you. So just sit in that space and just
Yep.
visualize on the one thing and let everything come to you, because it will. Don't worry about the process, because the process will come to you. The process will figure it out. And another thing I started doing was prioritizing things and putting it in my calendar. I've never been a guy to do that. And I started allocating things in my phone calendar or my computer calendar, and saying, okay, on this day at 8 o'clock in the morning, I'm going to go for a half an hour walk. And I'm just going to look around at the beauty, and okay, I'm just going to lose myself in a big deal. I don't care. And letting that ego go, because I found that my ego would be like, what the fuck are you doing? Why? This is not you. You don't want to look at trees. You don't want to go for a walk. Forget about the ego. Don't let the ego control it, and just move. Set it in my calendar, go for a half an hour walk, come back and sit with myself for 5 minutes to a meditation, and then visualize what's that one thing and not worry about the process.
It's It's so amazing. And you know what you just popped into my head is, you know, when I was doing like 3 to 5 minutes, that's all I started out with, 3 to 5 minutes.
I was the same. I'm
I
the
want
same.
I once was I once was at a conference, right? And I'm at a hotel. My wife and I are there, and I decided to go on a kind of a run hike up this hill behind the hotel that we were staying at. And then I had to get back by a certain time so I could take a shower and go to the conference. Well, I went up the hill, and by the time I got up the hill, I was going to do like a 5 minute meditation. I only had 3 minutes. I knew if I go more than 3 minutes, then I won't have enough time to walk back down and take a shower. So I set a song like I did. I fast forwarded, so there's only three
Yeah, I've
minutes
done that
left.
before.
So then, and so I put it in my earbuds, and I'm sitting there, and then I lost myself. I came out and I was like, oh no, I missed the class. Like I felt like I was sitting there for an hour. I kid you not. It was like so many ideas. I had a full download. I could see, and it probably was from the course because it was already going into day 2. So I was like thinking of all these things, how I was going to see my life. And I got up real fast and I was really worried. And I looked at my phone for the time, and it was only 3 minutes.
Oh
So
wow,
like time and space, like in a
disappeared, right?
way, it was like wild. I couldn't believe it. And I thought maybe my phone was off. I was double checking when I got back to the hotel room, and then it was only 3 minutes.
Mm,
But that's how powerful it can be, because we're taking pause. So I think
mm,
the biggest encouragement can be, well, you know, it comes back to that word importance. And I don't know, you know, like here I am speaking when I'm not so depressed. But you know, even when times are good, sometimes like bad thoughts can creep in, like old thinking or like old parts of me. So you know, even this year there's been some moments where I have not felt good, even though like everything is going well. So it does help to rebound out. In the darkest moments, it was others that helped me pull out. And I think if I could get one encouragement out to anyone, is to let go. Like you were just bringing up ego, that was always the thing that hurt me the most, because I was
mm.
so embarrassed that I was hurting. Like,
Yeah.
you know, like we can't show that. And you know, I've gained so many friends now. Like I'm a speaker now, and I get on stage, and there's sometimes I've lost it and I've cried on stage. And I'll tell you, I've had so many more connections and friends now that I've met,
Yeah.
because, and especially a lot of men, they come up to me and thank you for letting me see that we can be emotional. Because you know, some of us grow up and it's like, oh, if you cry, then you're not being a man, and all these things.
Mm.
And I guess what I want to say is, you know, like do everything you can to let go of that and like reach. You
And
know,
it's a,
there are
yeah, that's that admitting those fears to yourself, isn't it? And reaching into yourself and saying, well, what have I been afraid of? What, you know, why am I not why am I feeling like this, but what aren't I telling myself? What, you know, because it's hard enough to expose those things to other people. I think it's 10 times harder to expose them to yourself. But as soon as you do expose them to yourself, and then not put an importance and not have to worry about them, you know, a lot of people have all these worries that they just keep churning around. Pull them out and verbalize them. And you know, a massive thing for me has also been journaling. Get a
yeah,
journal and just write it all down, and then realize those things are in the past and they don't equal your present or your future.
you
Because if
get
you
to
keep
choose.
going, yeah, correct. And if you keep going through those same things, you are just in Groundhog Day, and you're going over the same emotions, the same feelings as yesterday, and it's all the same sorts. So how are you going to change today? Just
Yeah,
do one thing different.
yeah,
Journal
yeah.
it
and
all
and
out and go for a walk.
and allow yourself to be present. And I think that I'm so thankful and grateful for you, Dan, for having me on this show to say all this. Because you know what I found is that there's so many things that hurt my
Mm,
wife and I. And then the
mm.
more we were willing to share the stories, I can't tell you how many people come forward and say, oh my gosh, that happened to me. Oh my
And
gosh. And then when you talk to them, they're like, I was all alone. No, I didn't know there was anybody else to
100%.
talk to.
And this is the thing, right? Is that, you know, everyone has been through some really heavy shit in their life. Like, you know, when you and I were talking at the airport and you told me your story, like I wanted to cry because I was like, oh my God, like you've been through some massive stuff. I've been through some massive stuff. Like I had my first child when I was 18 years old. I didn't know what the hell I was doing and how the hell I was going to do it and getting
Right.
through it, and all this emotional stress that came with that. And you know, it's comforting to know that everyone has been through shit. Everyone has had to climb some fucking mountains to get to where they are. And, you know, when you're going through that stuff, when you
Or
hear that,
thrown off a mountain.
You know, what's thrown off. Exactly. Sometimes it feels like that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And sometimes it really happens.
Yeah. And, you know, when you really put that into perspective, then you're like, holy shit,
Yeah.
everyone else has been through stuff too.
Right. It's it's massive, and that's why sharing and sharing and sharing is so important. You know, like people look at me now and they're like, oh well, you've made it. Like, of course, what do you have to be depressed about? Well, you know what, it wasn't always that way. Like, you know,
Mm,
there's times in my life when I could go buy something at the store and not notice it in my bank account because it was good, but I've also had the opposite. I remember putting fuel in my car, watching how much I was pumping in so I could stop, so I had enough money to buy food.
mm.
You know, so I've been on both extremes, right? I didn't have anything.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and the worst was when I really did lose everything and I was holding on. And you know what? I would have been better if I stopped holding on. It was when one
Mm,
of my companies was completely failing and I held on for 4 years.
mm.
Not 4 months, not
That's it.
4 days, 4 years, put myself through so much stress. And if you look at pictures of me during that time, I look younger now than I did then. Talk about mental health, right?
Yeah,
Like even if you're
100%.
eating right and working out, you look like hell because your
Mm,
mind is there. And I've seen people that work out and eat really well and then they die of a heart attack because their stress was so high. So I'm in this moment, um, going through all of that, and it's again, it comes back to the embarrassment. You're holding it all inside and you're not sharing it with anyone else, and then you're embodying all that because you're looking in the mirror and saying, okay, how am I going to fix this? How am I going to fix this? Assuming that I have all the answers. And we have way more power than we think. However, there's so many people that actually would be glad to help you, and that's what I was so surprised at when I finally started opening up, when I finally started being vulnerable. Then I
mm,
realized how many people had, one, gone through the same thing I've gone through or something very, very similar, and
mm.
two, how much they were willing to help me.
Yeah.
That's and that's why I keep sharing. I just keep sharing my story, Dan, because it's like somebody is going to hear it and say, oh my gosh, I went through something similar, and oh my gosh, you came out of it. Oh, so maybe I can too.
Mm. And, you know, before we started talking, before the show, we both had that quick chat about, you know, the heart attack story when you thought you were having a heart attack. And I think you mentioned it briefly before. And that clicked in my mind. And I forgot that I'd even had that experience when, you know, I first started working in the family business. And man, it was a volatile environment. Like I was sitting in the middle and I had mum on one side and dad on the other side. And they were just arguing all the time, and then they wouldn't talk to each other for 3 or 4 days at a time. And I was just in the middle of all this crazy negative energy. And it went from mum, it went from dad, and it just went whack right in the middle. And I just caught all of that energy to the point where, you know, I felt like I was stoned every day and I couldn't function properly. I wasn't thinking right. I went to the doctors one day and I had all these, you know, really heavy pains in my chest. And I said, I think I'm my heart there's something going wrong with my heart. And she's like, so she rushed in to see the doctor, and she sent she came back out. The nurse came back out and said, the doctor said, you're fine. You're only 24. You're not having a heart attack. Just chill out. And I was like, oh. And even that was just a bit of a relief. And then he came
Right,
in and he
because
said, yeah, you know, and he's like, what's wrong? You're not having a heart attack. Look at your age. You're
yeah,
probably having anxiety. Breathe into a paper bag. Get out. And it was that kind of slap in the face that I was like, shit. Yeah, he's right. But the funny thing is, and I wanted to ask you this question, right? And I know that you'll have a bang on answer for it, is every time you get to a certain point and it feels really, really heavy, it always comes back to your heart.
yeah,
Once you've gone through all this stuff and you're getting to a really, really bad place, it always ends up coming and manifesting through your whole body, through your mind, into that one place. And how do you and I suppose, you know, one of the answers I reckon is going to be, you know, giving yourself more gratitude. But it just blows me away that every time you get to that low, you have that real pressure in your heart.
yeah. It does, and different things can show up in different parts of the body, but ultimately, when it comes to self-worth, your direction, obviously, like heart driven. That's why they always say follow your heart, because
Mm.
you know the heart does, and that's why, you know, current science is catching up with what spirituality is already known. But you know, they are showing that there is, you know, logic centers, there is membranes both in your gut and inside. When your gut's not functioning right, it affects our decision making, and that's why there's the whole thing about trust your gut. So there's like
Mm.
gut awareness, heart awareness, and mind awareness. And I'm young at studying this. There's psychologists that could tell you a whole whirlwind of stuff around this. I'm not a psychologist, but I'm self-studied and taken a lot of different programs to learn. But what I can tell you is the best, I like to talk in metaphors because I think it's easier to understand. When you think of a hot fire, so I want to talk about our nerves for a second. When you think of like a fire and your hand gets close to a fire, then you want to, hopefully first off, your body feels it and pulls away before you touch the fire. But if you put your hand or a finger or even a little bit, or even the hairs on your knuckles, well, for me, I have hair on my knuckles, but this hairy Italian. Yeah, there you go. So if it gets close and you feel that, like, oh, you want to pull away right away. Right. And this is what's happening on a lighter level, which causes us not to pay attention to it. But when you don't feel good, when it doesn't feel good, it doesn't feel right, then we tend to keep driving through because it's not like a fire. But really, our body is saying, hey, buddy, knock, knock, knock. Don't go this way. This isn't the way for you. And so now when I feel it, now I have to have a little discernment, because sometimes it's fear. When it's fear, that means that the fear is what's unknown, right? That I don't want to go this way because I don't know what's going to happen. And so I'm afraid. So I have to check in. Am I afraid, or does it just not feel good? And there's both. Sometimes it's like, oh yeah, you just don't know what's going to happen. Okay, so give it a shot. Then that's where my mind, I've trained myself. I had to train myself. This was learned to step into those things that were unknown. But then on the other side, when it's like, no, I just do not like this. I don't know why, but I don't like this. And that's where there will be other coaches out there that would say, plow through. That's when you just got to get through. You want to go this way. You want this business. So you got to go through and do those things you don't want to do because that's what everyone has to do. No. I say exactly. No, that goes away from our energy chi, that goes from our heart center. And this is why we feel bad. This is why we start to crumble. This is why we have heart attacks. This is why we start to feel disease, because we're pushing ourselves into it. And so now what I do when I feel that, just like the hot fire, you want to pull away. I do exactly that. I pull away and then I find the other way. I find another path. Like I love what Bruce Lee said. He said, be water, my friend. Be water. Water goes around the rock, over the rock. It doesn't break rocks. I often say now when I'm on stage speaking, I say, if you're the only time in business that you should be breaking rocks is if you're in the mining business. That's it. If you're breaking rocks, then you shouldn't be there. And the last part, Dan, is that just think of a train. When the train is on the rails, it goes smooth and it can go fast. When you see a train, we can all picture, if you've ever seen a train off the rails, it is ugly. It is catastrophe, right? The train's all, and if you even think you're strong enough or you have enough horsepower, you have like tractors and all this heavy equipment and you're pulling a train through dirt. Oh my gosh, that's so much work. Can you imagine if you just put it on the rails? And so that's why our feelings are important. And that's why it shows up in our chest. So when you feel all that embodiment and you pain in your body, then notice you're off your rails. And that's why they even say that when you're crazy, right? You're off your rails. Well, you know what? That's actually real. You're off your rails. Yes, get back on the rails. You're in the dirt. Get the train back on the rails. Follow your heart. Follow your heart.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah, it summed it up really, really well. So massive takeouts. And I suppose we probably should wrap it up soon because we've got to get into another session with just you and I. So massive takeouts for that is pick one thing. Don't focus. Just focus on the outcome. Don't focus on the journey getting there. Yeah. Get a really good group of key people around you. If you can't do that, listen to some really good music that's going to uplift you. Move. Force your body to move. Dance. Jump around. Do whatever you got to do. Talk to people. What else is there that people
just put your feet in the dirt, like go outside, put your feet in the grass or in the dirt. It's amazing how grounding that is. That's why I used to always like going to the beach, because you just put your feet in the sand, so that's something. If you could garden, even if you have like a little apartment and you have a balcony, just plant some tomatoes and like take care of it. If you don't have any family around you, whatever, take care of a plant, feed a fish. It's so crazy how something so small can make you feel better. And then give yourself credit. And when it doesn't feel right, try something else. If everything feels bad, just do something different. I mean, that's it. Well, just do something new. Try something new.
Not the same thing, a different way, something completely different. or, you know, start journaling, like, you know, like I was saying before.
Yeah, write it
Journal,
down.
write it all
Right.
down and get it all there, read it back and be like, that's not me anymore, and move forward and start. One massive thing that I've been noticing lately is you know, all these people who are really in tune with where they're at. And they said, I wasn't always this person. I had to create this person. And I wrote down who I want to be, not who am I, because everyone's trying to answer this question of who am I? Who do I want to be? And, you know, discover who that person is and then go become that person, because you have to build that person.
Well, and you know, the funny thing is, I would say to flip flop that is that's true. I would ask yourself that question, who do I want to be? But I'll bet you that's already coming from inside of you. It was already there. You're actually just writing it down, but it's so beautiful. I was just going to say, it messaged me, like, in all seriousness, if you don't have anyone to talk to and you're not feeling well and you're depressed, you know, myself and my team are here, and we may not be the answer, but we do know other trained professionals or whatever. We'll do everything that we can, because, you know, we have been there. And so I just want to be there. If somebody doesn't have someone to reach out to, then please reach out to us, you know? So
you're amazing. Yeah. You're amazing, man. And the same thing for us. If anyone needs any assistance or any help, shoot us an email, shoot us a message, and we'll do everything we can and point people in the right direction to try and get through it, for sure, because it's tough times for everyone globally at the moment. It's a different world, but move your body, watch something funny, laugh, journal, draw a picture.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Even if you have to fake laugh until you start really laughing.
I've done that before.
The fun, I know we got to go, but the funniest thing my son showed me, my son's 15 right now, and he showed me this thing of this Spanish guy. He lost these paella pans. The chef told him to go tie a rope and put the pans into the ocean because they were all messed up, and then in the morning go get the paella pans, but then he lost them all. And then that's not even that funny. It's not funny at all. He lost all these paella pans, but the way he told the story and the way he laughs so hard. Have you ever been around someone laughing so hard that you start laughing?
So
anyway, if you want to laugh, then look up lost paella pans. I think it comes up if you do that.
There's another great one that Mark sent me yesterday, and it was herding cats, and it's about some cowboys in America on the plains out in the West herding cats, and it was one of the.
I've seen that one. That one's been around a little while. Yeah, so that's funny. I so appreciate you, brother, bringing me on and sharing this, and I hope that you know, everyone starts doing more sharing, because then that's going to open up people to be vulnerable and ask for help. And I think that's the key. You know, I spent some time in the Amazon several times, and one tribe, the Yawanawa people, and they're a Brazilian tribe. They do everything together. So if somebody is hurting, they stop everything until that person is better. They basically just feel it's almost like throwing a party, like they do it all together. So everyone heals together. So if someone's depressed, the whole community is there for them. They don't stop until the person feels better. So it's
beautiful.
We're human. We're meant to be together, and
that's what people forget. We're 100%. We're human. We're meant to connect. We're meant to share our energies and help each other, and that's what we do.
Yep. Well, anyway, we could go on for an on and on.
We could, but we'll wrap it up there.
Brother. I appreciate you.
Thanks very much for coming on the show, and we hope that everyone got something really amazing out of that, and we're all in this together.